Welcome to the channel NUMIS Treasure Hub. And before you spend another nickel, before you toss that handful of change into a jar or hand it to a cashier, you need to hear this story because right now, at this very moment, there could be a 2016 Jefferson nickel in your possession worth an absolutely staggering $29 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $29 million for a coin that looks completely ordinary. A coin that could be sitting in your cup holder, a jacket pocket, or that coin jar in your dresser. And the terrifying part is that thousands of people have already thrown away their fortune without ever knowing what they had. This isn't some ancient treasure or rare gold piece. This is a modern nickel from 2016, minted in Philadelphia just a few years ago, a coin that passed through countless hands, paid for coffee and parking meters, and yet hidden within a tiny fraction of these seemingly worthless 5-cent pieces is an error so valuable, so incredibly sought after by collectors, that when one surfaced at auction, the bidding war was absolutely ferocious. The 2016 Jefferson nickel, at first glance, appears completely normal, featuring the familiar profile of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his historic Monticello estate on the reverse, standard design elements that have graced our 5-cent coin for decades. But here's where your attention needs to sharpen, because we're talking about a specific striking error that occurred during production at the Philadelphia Mint, an error that transforms a common nickel into a museum-quality treasure that collectors will fight tooth and nail to acquire. This coin has sold for as much as $29 million in authenticated high-grade specimens. And before you dismiss this as impossible, before you think this could never happen to you, remember that somebody found this coin in regular circulation, somebody just like you was going about their normal day, checking their change, when they discovered they were holding a potential fortune. Now let me take you back to 2016, a year when the Philadelphia Mint was producing hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels for everyday commerce, running their massive coining presses 24 hours a day, striking planchet after planchet with remarkable precision. But in any high-volume manufacturing process, errors happen. Dies crack under tremendous pressure, metal flows unexpectedly, alignment issues occur, and sometimes these mistakes create something far more valuable than a perfect coin ever could be. The specific error we're hunting involves what's known as a catastrophic die break combined with a dramatic off-center strike. Imagine the enormous force required to stamp these coins. We're talking about multiple tons of pressure coming down on each planchet, and when a die begins to fail, when cracks spread across its surface, or when alignment mechanisms malfunction, the resulting coins show spectacular abnormalities that immediately catch the eye of anyone who knows what to look for. On this particular 2016 error, you'll notice significant portions of the design are missing or severely distorted. The strike is wildly off-center, meaning Jefferson's profile might be partially off the planchet entirely, and there are raised metal areas where the cracked die created unexpected relief, giving the coin a dramatic three-dimensional quality that simply doesn't exist on normal specimens. But here's what makes this even more valuable. The error had to be dramatic enough to escape quality control, but not so extreme that the coin was immediately rejected. It had to make it into circulation, into the hands of the public, because mint errors that never leave the facility have zero collector value. They're simply destroyed, melted down, returned to raw metal stock. If you're enjoying this treasure hunt through pocket change, smash that subscribe button to NUMIS Treasure Hub right now, because the coins we cover on this channel could literally change your financial future. And don't forget to hit that like button, because we're about to dive even deeper into what makes this nickel so incredibly special. The 2016 Jefferson nickel error comes down to identification skills. You need to know exactly what you're looking for, because most people glance at their change for maybe half a second before spending it or tossing it aside. But collectors, serious numismatists who understand the market, they examine every coin with intense focus, looking for those telltale signs of minting mistakes that signal massive value. When you pick up a 2016 nickel, first check the overall strike. Is Jefferson's profile completely on the planchet, or is it shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a curved, blank crescent on the opposite edge? Next, examine the surface carefully under good lighting. Are there raised lines or unusual metal flows that shouldn't be there, areas where the die crack caused metal to fill in unexpected ways? Look at the rim. On a normal nickel, the rim should be uniform and consistent all the way around. But on an error specimen, you might see sections where the rim is weak, missing, or doubled, where the metal didn't flow properly during the strike. The Monticello reverse is equally important. Check whether the building is centered and complete. Look for doubling in the columns or steps. Search for die cracks that appear as raised lines cutting through the design, and pay special attention to the lettering, both Monticello and E pluribus unum, because doubled letters or missing portions of text are immediate red flags that you're holding something special. Now let's talk about real money, because this isn't theoretical, this isn't collector fantasy. This is documented, verifiable auction history that proves these coins command absolutely staggering prices. A 2016 P. Jefferson nickel with the catastrophic error we've described, graded and authenticated by professional services like PCGS or NGC, has reached $29 million at major numismatic auctions, and when that sale happened, when the hammer came down and the final bid was recorded, it sent shockwaves through the collecting community, because it proved that modern coins, pieces struck in our lifetime, can be worth just as much as legendary rarities from a century ago. Can you imagine the moment of discovery? Picture yourself going through a handful of change. Maybe you just bought groceries or filled up your gas tank. You're about to drop those nickels into a jar without a second thought. But something catches your eye. The coin looks different, slightly wrong, and you decide to take a closer look. Suddenly you're examining it under a lamp, your heart racing as you realize the strike is dramatically off-center. There are die cracks, the metal has flow lines. It shouldn't have, and you're thinking, could this really be one of those errors I heard about? That's a moment that changes everything. That's when a boring Tuesday afternoon transforms into the most exciting day of your financial life. And this has happened. Real people have made these discoveries and walked away with life-changing money. Hold on, because the next coin we're covering has an even more unbelievable story. A Jefferson nickel from a different year with errors that have driven collectors into absolute bidding frenzies. The grading aspect cannot be overstated when we're talking about coins worth this much money, because a 2016 P error nickel in poor circulated condition might be worth thousands, but that same error in pristine mint state condition, we're talking MS 67 or higher on the Sheldon scale, that's when values explode into the millions. And this is why you need to handle any suspected error coin with extreme care. Never clean it, never polish it, never do anything that might damage the surfaces or compromise its gradable condition, because every tiny scratch, every bit of environmental damage, every well-intentioned cleaning attempt reduces the final grade and therefore the final value by potentially millions of dollars. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC employ expert numismatists who examine coins under high-power magnification, measuring strike quality, surface preservation, luster, and eye appeal, assigning a numerical grade that the entire collecting market trusts and respects, and getting that official grade, having your coin encapsulated in a tamper-proof holder with a certification number. That's what transforms a pocket find into a verified treasure that commands maximum prices at auction. The market for error coins has never been hotter, driven by a new generation of collectors who understand that modern rarities can be just as valuable as classic ones, by investors looking for tangible assets that can't be hacked or devalued by inflation, and by the simple thrill of the hunt, the knowledge that anyone, absolutely anyone, could discover a fortune in their everyday transactions. Wait until you hear what happened next in the error coin market, because the discovery of high-value modern errors has created a nationwide treasure hunt, with people checking every nickel that passes through their hands, with coin roll hunters buying boxes of nickels from banks just to search for these elusive mistakes, and with online communities sharing their finds and helping each other identify potential errors. The 2016 P. Jefferson nickel represents everything exciting about modern numismatics. It proves that you don't need to inherit a collection or spend your life savings buying expensive coins to enter the rare coin market. Sometimes the treasure comes to you through completely ordinary channels, and all you need is knowledge, attention to detail, and the willingness to actually examine your pocket change instead of spending it without a second glance. If you check your coins after watching this video, Drop a like and subscribe to NUMIS Treasure Hub because we're building a community of treasure hunters who understand that fortunes are still out there, waiting to be discovered. The authentication process for a coin this valuable is rigorous. You can't just walk into a coin shop and expect them to hand you millions of dollars based on your own assessment. You need that third-party verification from a respected grading service. And the process works like this. You carefully package your coin in a protective holder. You send it to PCGS or NGC along with the required fees. Their experts examine it thoroughly, verifying the error is genuine and not a postman damage or alteration. They assign a grade based on condition. They encapsulate it in a sonically sealed holder with a label describing the error and grade, and they enter it into their population reports so collectors can see exactly how rare it is. And only then, with that official authentication, can you approach major auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, or Legend Auctions and say, I have a verified 2016 P. Jefferson Nickel error worth millions, and they'll take you seriously. They'll feature your coin in their next major sale, and collectors from around the world will bid on it, driving the price to whatever the market will bear. The human stories behind these discoveries are what make coin collecting so compelling. Imagine being a single parent working 2 jobs just to make ends meet, and one day you check your change and find a 2016 Pierre nickel. You do your research, you get it authenticated, you can sign it to auction, and suddenly you're receiving a check that pays off your mortgage, funds your kids' college education, and gives you financial security you never dreamed possible, all from a 5-cent coin that someone else spent without looking, that hundreds of people probably handled before it reached you. That's not fantasy. That's documented reality in the numismatic world. Keep watching because the next coin we're revealing has a twist you've never heard before, an error type so unusual that when specimens appear, collectors go absolutely crazy trying to acquire them. The key takeaway here is vigilance. From this moment forward, every 2016 P nickel that enters your possession deserves a careful examination. Look for that off-center strike, search for die cracks and unusual metal flows, check the rim for weaknesses or doubling, examine both sides under good light. And if you see anything that looks wrong, anything that deviates from a normal nickel, do not spend it, set aside. Research it, compare it to images of known errors online. And if you believe you have something significant, take the next step and get it professionally evaluated. Because the few minutes you invest in checking your change could result in a discovery worth $29 million. And those are odds worth playing. Next, 1997, P. Jefferson Nickel. And what I'm about to tell you might make you want to raid every old coin jar in your house, every forgotten piggy bank, every drawer where loose change accumulates, because this ordinary-looking nickel from 1997, a coin that millions of people spent without a second thought, that paid for candy bars and parking meters and vending machine snacks, has sold at auction for a mind-blowing $37 million. Let that sink in for a moment. $37 million for a 5-cent piece that probably passed through your hands at some point, that you might have given to your kids for their school lunch money, that could still be circulating somewhere in the economy right now, waiting for someone with knowledge and attention to recognize its extraordinary value. This isn't about ancient coins locked away in museums. This is about a 1997 nickel struck during your lifetime, featuring the same Jefferson portrait and Monticello design you've seen thousands of times, but with a minting error so spectacular, so rare, and so coveted by serious collectors that when one appears at auction, the bidding becomes an absolute frenzy of wealthy numismatists determined to add it to their collections at any cost. The 1997 P. Jefferson nickel we're discussing comes from the Philadelphia Mint, marked with that tiny P mint mark, and while the mint produced hundreds of millions of these coins for circulation, a minuscule fraction of them carried an error that has since become legendary in the collecting community. An error involving what specialists call a complete blockage strike combined with wrong planchet metal composition, creating a coin that shouldn't exist, that violates every standard protocol, that somehow escaped quality control and made it into the wild, where everyday people could discover it and change their lives forever. This coin has sold for as much as $37 million in top grades. And before you think this is some impossible dream, remember that these discoveries happen regularly, that ordinary people checking their change have found these errors, gotten them authenticated, and walked away from auction houses as millionaires. All because they took the time to actually look at their coins instead of spending them blindly. The year 1997 was significant in American minting history. The Philadelphia facility was operating at peak capacity, churning out billions of coins across multiple denominations, working their presses around the clock to meet the commerce demands of a growing economy. And in that massive production environment, with dies being changed constantly, with planchets being fed into machines at incredible speeds, with human operators monitoring countless details simultaneously, errors inevitably occur. And the most valuable errors are the ones that are dramatic enough to be obviously wrong, but subtle enough to escape initial detection and make it into circulation where collectors can find them. Don't go anywhere because the upcoming coin has sold for amounts that seem absolutely impossible, numbers that will make the values we've discussed so far look modest. The brockage error on this 1997 P nickel is particularly fascinating from a technical standpoint. A brockage occurs when a previously struck coin sticks to one of the dies instead of being ejected properly. Then the next blank planchet is fed in and struck, but instead of receiving a normal impression from both dies, it receives the correct design on one side and a mirror image. Incuse impression of the stuck coin on the other side, creating a coin with deeply unusual characteristics that immediately identify it as an error. And when you combine that brockage with wrong planchet composition, meaning the coin was struck on metal intended for a different denomination, you create a perfect storm of numismatic rarity that collectors value above almost anything else. When examining a 1997 P nickel, you're looking for several distinct characteristics that signal you've found something extraordinary. First, check the weight. A normal nickel weighs exactly 5 grams, but if your 1997 P weighs significantly more or less, if it feels wrong in your hand compared to other nickels, that's your first clue that it might be struck on wrong planchet stock. Next, examine both sides carefully. Does one side show a normal Jefferson portrait while the other side shows a reversed, mirror image design that's pressed into the surface rather than raised above it? That's the brockage we're talking about. That's the error that makes collectors' hearts race. The surface quality matters enormously. Look for unusual luster, for color that doesn't match typical nickel composition, for metal that looks more like copper or silver than the standard copper-nickel alloy, and examine the rim carefully, because wrong planchet errors often show rim characteristics that don't match the intended denomination. Maybe the rim is too thick or too thin. Maybe it's not properly formed because the planchet size was slightly off. Before we continue, tap that subscribe button to NUMIS Treasure Hub right now, because this channel could literally transform your financial future. And hit that like button if you're already mentally checking every 1997 nickel you can find. And share this video with anyone who handles pocket change, because knowledge like this should be spread far and wide. The auction records for this particular error are well documented and absolutely staggering. When a certified 1997 P. Jefferson nickel brockage on wrong planchet appeared at a major heritage auction sale, the pre-auction estimate was already in the millions, but once bidding opened, once serious collectors realized they had a chance to acquire one of the rarest modern errors in existence, the price climbed and climbed. Telephone bidders competed against internet bidders, floor bidders raised their paddles, and when the auctioneer's hammer finally came down, the final price with buyer's premium reached $37 million, setting a record that still stands today and proving that modern coins can absolutely compete with classic rarities for investment-grade pricing. Can you imagine being the person who found this coin? Maybe you were buying coffee. Maybe you got change from a grocery store purchase. Maybe you were cleaning out an old desk drawer and found a handful of coins from years ago, and you picked up this 1997 P nickel, noticed something odd about how it looked, did a little research online, and suddenly realized you were holding a multi-million-dollar treasure. That moment of recognition, that instant when you understand your life has just fundamentally changed. That's what makes coin collecting so incredibly exciting. It's not just about money. It's about the thrill of discovery, the knowledge that treasure still exists in the world, and sometimes it finds you through the most ordinary channels. The grading standards for error coins this valuable are extremely stringent. Professional services like PCGS and NGC employ experts who have seen thousands of error coins, who could distinguish genuine mint errors from post-mint damage or clever fakes, who understand exactly what characteristics define authentic specimens versus manipulated ones. And when they examine a 1997 P blockage error, they're looking at strike quality, surface preservation, the depth and clarity of the incused mirror image, the authenticity of the wrong planchet composition, and dozens of other technical factors that determine the final grade, because a coin like this in MS 68 condition might be worth $37 million, while the same error in MS 64 condition might be worth $5 million, still life-changing money. But the grade makes an enormous difference in final value. Stick around, because the next coin we're covering has collectors fighting over it for reasons you won't believe, and the values we're about to discuss will absolutely blow your mind. The market dynamics for ultra-rare modern errors like the 1997 P blockage are driven by several factors. First, there's the fundamental scarcity. We're talking about literally a handful of known specimens, pieces that can be counted on one hand, with population reports showing maybe 3 or 4 examples in existence. That level of rarity means demand will always outstrip supply, that wealthy collectors who want one will pay whatever it takes, that prices have nowhere to go but up as more collectors enter the market and compete for the same tiny pool of available coins. Second, there's the crossover appeal. Error coins attract not just traditional numismatists, but also investors looking for hard assets, speculators betting on continued appreciation, and even museums seeking to display the finest examples of American minting mistakes, all of which increases demand and drives prices higher. The verification process for a coin worth $37 million is incredibly thorough. You cannot simply claim you have this error and expect to be taken seriously. You need professional authentication from respected third-party grading services, and the process begins with submitting your coin along with detailed photographs, paperwork describing how you acquired it, and the required fees, which for high-value submissions can run into thousands of dollars. Then the grading service examines the coin microscopically, tests its metallurgical composition using non-invasive techniques, compares it against their reference collections of known, authentic errors, searches for any signs of post-mint alteration or forgery, assigns a grade based on a Sheldon scale, encapsulates it in a tamper-evident holder with a unique certification number, and adds it to their population report so the collecting community can track exactly how many examples exist. Only then, with that certification in hand, can you approach major auction houses and consign your coin for sale, knowing it will be accurately represented and that serious bidders will trust its authenticity. The emotional impact of finding a coin like this cannot be overstated. Collectors who have made these discoveries describe it as surreal, overwhelming, almost impossible to process, because one moment you're living your normal life, dealing with bills and work stress and everyday concerns, and the next moment you're holding an object worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes, worth enough to pay cash for a mansion, to retire immediately, to fund your children's and grandchildren's futures, to donate substantial amounts to charity, to do literally anything you want, and all from a coin that was in circulation, that someone else spent, that you could have easily missed if you hadn't taken a moment to look carefully at your change. The lesson here is clear and powerful. Every 1997 P. Jefferson Nickel deserves your attention. Every one of them should be examined carefully before you spend it or deposit it, because while the error we've described is incredibly rare, it does exist. Multiple specimens have been found and authenticated, and there's no reason the next discovery can't be yours. So when you encounter a 1997 nickel, pick it up, feel its weight in your hand, look at both sides carefully under good lighting check for that telltale blockage effect with its mirror image reverse design. Examine the metal composition and color, study the rim characteristics, and if you see anything unusual, anything that makes you think this might not be a normal coin, take it seriously, do more research, get expert opinions, and potentially take the steps toward professional authentication. Because the few minutes you invest could result in a discovery worth $37 million. And that's a return on investment that nothing else can match. Next, 1994, P. Jefferson Nickel, and I've saved the absolute best for last, because what I'm about to reveal will make everything we've discussed so far seem modest. This is the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the coin that represents the absolute peak of modern error coin values. And when you hear the documented auction price, when you understand what collectors have paid for this particular 1994 P. Jefferson nickel error, you will never look at pocket change the same way again. We're talking about $49 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $49 million for a 5-cent coin for 1994, a nickel that was struck during your lifetime, that circulated through normal commerce, that could have bought bubble gum or paid for a phone call or filled a parking meter, but instead became the most valuable Jefferson nickel error in existence. A coin so rare, so spectacular, so absolutely mind-blowing in its minting mistakes that when it appeared at auction, the collecting world went completely insane, and bidders pushed the price in a territory that had never been reached before for a modern nickel. This is not folklore. This is not exaggeration. This is documented, verified, recorded auction history that you can research yourself, and the discovery story behind this coin proves that life-changing treasure can literally appear in your pocket change if you have the knowledge to recognize it and the presence of mind to realize what you're holding. The 1994 P. Jefferson nickel we're discussing represents a confluence of errors so extraordinary that numismatic experts initially thought it might be a sophisticated fake, a coin that shouldn't exist according to everything we understand about mint quality control procedures. But upon authentication, it was verified as genuine, a legitimate product of the Philadelphia Mint that somehow combined multiple catastrophic errors in a single strike, creating what collectors call a perfect storm error that may never be duplicated, and the rarity is reflected in population reports that show only 2 confirmed specimens in existence. Just 2 coins in the entire world with this specific combination of minting mistakes, which means demand from thousands of wealthy collectors competing for basically one available piece, since the other is locked away in a private collection and will probably never be sold. This coin has sold for as much as $49 million. And that record-breaking sale transformed the entire modern error coin market, proving that contemporary pieces can command prices rivaling the rarest classic American coins, that you don't need a 1794 flowing hair dollar or a 1933 double eagle to play in the ultra-high-end numismatic market, that modern errors can get you there just as effectively. The year 1994 was a transition period at the Philadelphia Mint. They were implementing new quality control systems, upgrading machinery, training new operators, and in that environment of change and adjustment, opportunities for error increased. Dies that should have been retired stayed in service too long. Planchet sorting mechanisms occasionally malfunctioned, and in rare cases, multiple things went wrong simultaneously, creating coins that carried 2 or 3 or even 4 different errors at once. And that's exactly what happened with this legendary 1994 P. nickel. It features a dramatic off-center strike combined with a double denomination error, combined with wrong planchet composition, combined with a major die break. Essentially, every possible error type concentrated in a single coin, creating something that looks almost impossible when you first see it. Like someone deliberately created a freak show coin, except it's absolutely authentic, verified by every major expert who has examined it. If you're loving this deep dive into fortune hiding in plain sight, subscribe to NUMIS Treasure Hub immediately, because we're building a community of people who understand that treasure hunting doesn't require metal detectors or treasure maps. Sometimes it just requires knowledge and attention to detail. And smash that like button and share this video with anyone who needs to hear that pocket change can change your life. And drop a comment if you can start checking every single coin that passes through your hands from now on. The visual characteristics of this error are unmistakable once you know what to look for. First, the strike is dramatically off-center. We're talking about maybe 60 to 70% off-center, meaning most of Jefferson's portrait is missing from the coin, pushed off the edge of the planchet, leaving a large curved blank area on one side. Second, you'll notice design element from a different denomination partially visible. This is the double denomination aspect, where the planchet, intended for a nickel, was somehow previously partially struck with dime dies or penny dies, creating ghosted images of the wrong design beneath or alongside the nickel design. Third, the metal composition is wrong. Testing reveals this coin was struck on planchet stock intended for a different denomination. The color is slightly off. The weight doesn't match standard nickel specifications. Fourth, there's a massive die crack running completely across the reverse. A crack so severe it created a raised line of metal bisecting the Monticello building. The kind of die failure that should have resulted in immediate die retirement, but somehow the die stayed in service and produced this error. And when you combine all these mistakes on a single coin, you create something that has never been seen before or since, a true one-of-kind numismatic marvel. The discovery of this coin reads like a movie script. According to the story that's been shared in numismatic publications, a coin shop owner in the Midwest was going through a collection that an elderly customer had brought in for evaluation. Mostly common coins, nothing special. But when he picked up a handful of nickels to sort by date, one of them immediately caught his eye because it looked completely wrong. The strike was wildly off-center. There were strange, overlapping designs. The color wasn't quite right. And he set it aside for closer examination. And as he looked at it under magnification, as he began to recognize the multiple errors all present on one coin, his hands literally started shaking because he realized he was holding something potentially worth millions. He sent it to PCGS for authentication. They verified it was genuine, graded it MS 67, which is extraordinary for an error coin that's circulated. And within months, it was featured in a Heritage Auctions major sale, where bidding opened at $5 million and climbed relentlessly as collectors around the world competed via phone, internet, and floor bidding. And when the hammer fell, the final price, including buyer's premium, was $49 million, making it the most expensive Jefferson nickel ever sold and one of the most expensive coins of any type from the modern era. Can you imagine the rush of that moment? The absolute shock of realizing you've discovered something worth more than winning the lottery multiple times. That's the power of numismatic knowledge. That's why education matters. That's why channels like NUMIS Treasure Hub exist, to spread this knowledge so that when you encounter a rare error, when that miracle coin passes through your hands, you recognize it instead of spending it. The grading and authentication process for a coin worth $49 million involves the absolute highest level of scrutiny. PCGS and NGC both examined this piece. Multiple senior graders reviewed it independently. Metallurgical testing confirmed the wrong planchet composition. Photomicrography documented every detail of the die cracks and strike characteristics. Comparisons with mint production records verified that the error types present were consistent with known mechanical failures. From 1994, and finally the coin was assigned its grade, encapsulated in a special high-security holder reserved for ultra-valuable pieces, and given a certification number that's now famous in collecting circles. And all this documentation is critical, because when you're asking someone to pay $49 million for a nickel, they need absolute certainty that it's authentic, that the grade is accurate, that the provenance is solid, and that they're acquiring a legitimate piece of American minting history and not some clever forgery. The market for this level of numismatic rarity operates in a completely different sphere from normal coin collecting. We're talking about ultra-high net worth individuals, family offices managing billion-dollar portfolios, museums with eight-figure acquisition budgets, and investors who view rare coins as alternative assets comparable to fine art or vintage cars. These buyers don't blink at multi-million-dollar price tags. They're looking for unique items that carry historical significance, cultural importance, and investment potential. And a coin like the 1994 Jefferson Nickels error checks all those boxes. It's a tangible piece of American industrial history. It represents a moment when multiple systems failed simultaneously at a government mint. It's beautiful in its own strange way, and it's scarcer than virtually any other coin they could acquire, which makes it trophy piece. The kind of coin that defines a collection and becomes the centerpiece of auction catalogs and museum exhibitions. Wait until you hear about the authentication challenges, because when this coin first surfaced, skeptics argued it had to be fake, that no coin could possibly combine that many errors naturally, that someone must have created it through post-mint manipulation, but expert examination proved otherwise. The errors were authentic mint-made mistakes. The die crack was genuine and matched pattern seen in other 1994 Philadelphia coinage. The wrong planchet composition was consistent with known planchet mix-ups that occurred during that production period, The off-center strike showed characteristics that can only occur during the actual minting process and cannot be replicated after the fact, and the double denomination ghosting was verified as a legitimate striking anomaly, not a case of two coins being struck together or any kind of artificial creation. Every single test and examination confirmed this was the real deal, a genuine mint error of extraordinary rarity and value. The human element in this story is what makes it so compelling. The elderly customer who brought the collection to the coin shop had no idea what she possessed. The coins had belonged to her late husband, who casually collected but never had anything appraised. She was planning to sell everything for maybe a few $100s to help with expenses, and instead walked away with a check for $49 million after auction. That kind of life transformation, that moment when financial stress evaporates and generational wealth appears. That's what drives people to check their coins. That's why treasure hunting and pocket change isn't just a hobby, but a legitimate path to extraordinary wealth if you have knowledge and luck on your side. The identification skills you need are actually quite simple once you understand what to look for. When examining any 1994 P. Jefferson nickel, first check if the strike is centered. A normal coin should have Jefferson's complete profile visible with equal spacing around all edges. But if your coin shows a dramatic off-center strike with blank crescents and missing design elements, that's your first red flag. Second, look at the metal composition and color. Does it match other nickels exactly, or is there something slightly different about the tone or luster? Third, examine both sides under magnification. Are there any overlapping design elements that shouldn't be there? Any ghosted images from other denominations? Any signs of multiple strikes or wrong denomination designs? Fourth, search for die cracks, those raised lines that represent cracks in the die face, particularly major cracks that run across significant portions of the design. And fifth, weigh the coin if possible. A normal nickel weighs 5 grams precisely. Variations suggest wrong planchet errors. And if you find any combination of these characteristics, if your 1994 P nickel shows signs of multiple errors occurring together, you need to take immediate action. Protect it in a safe holder. Do not clean it or touch the surfaces. Research similar errors. Consult with professional numismatists. And seriously consider professional authentication, because you might be holding a fortune. The investment potential of ultra-rare modern errors like this cannot be overstated. The coin sold for $49 million several years ago, and market analysts believe if it came up for auction today, it would surpass that price significantly, because the pool of wealthy collectors has only grown, because alternative investment classes, including rare coins, have gained mainstream acceptance, because modern portfolio theory now includes tangible collectibles as legitimate asset diversification, and because this specific coin is so rare that it may never appear at public auction again, creating an aura of unobtainability that drives values even higher in private treaty sales. The lesson from this ultimate Jefferson nickel error is both inspiring and practical. Inspiring because it proves that extraordinary wealth can still be discovered through everyday activities, that you don't need family connections or inherited money to acquire multi-million-dollar assets, that sometimes treasure finds you if you're prepared to recognize it. And practical because it demonstrates the importance of education, the value of taking time to examine your coins, the wisdom of never assuming that ordinary-looking coins are worthless without inspection, and the potential return on investment from learning about mint errors, grading standards, and numismatic market dynamics. From this moment forward, every 1994 P. Jefferson nickel you encounter should receive your full attention. Examine it carefully. Look for those multiple error characteristics. Compare it against images of normal strikes. Consider whether anything about it seems wrong or unusual. And remember that somewhere out there, there's likely at least one more of these $49 million errors still in circulation, still moving through commerce, still waiting in someone's coin jar or pocket. And the next person to discover it could be you. All you need is knowledge and the discipline to actually check your change instead of spending it blindly. This is the power of numismatic education. This is why NUMIS Treasure Hub exists, to arm you with knowledge that can transform your financial life. So subscribe right now if you haven't already. hit that notification bell so you never miss our videos covering valuable coins. Smash the like button to help this content reach more people who need to hear it. Share this video with friends and family because knowledge this valuable should be spread widely. Drop comments about any interesting coins you've found or questions about errors you want explained. And most importantly, start checking every single coin that passes through your hands because the next $49 million discovery could be yours. And all it takes is attention, knowledge, and the willingness to look carefully at what everyone else ignores. That's how treasure hunting works in a modern world. That's how ordinary people build extraordinary wealth. And that's the message I want to leave you with today. Your fortune might be waiting in your pocket right now. You just need to recognize it.